Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Sarah Lauren. First, a couple of announcements. Check out our new affiliate, Brainsupreme. Brainsupreme contains the highest quality ingredients to start your microdose journey, guaranteed. Learn more by visiting their website, brainsupreme.co. If you visit brainsupreme.co/discount/FKN15, you're going to get 15% off the entire order. Also, watch the recent episode with Brainsupreme founder Adam Shell to find out more about starting your microdose journey today. Also, watch the Forbidden documentary Occult Louisiana, available on Tubi, Roku channel, and multiple streaming platforms. And always download our audio podcast through Spreaker. Today I want to welcome Sarah Lauren. She is an author who seeks freedom from the systemic slavery present in our modern culture. Her debut, Alchemizing Exploitation, details her survival from human trafficking, struggles with the mainstream treatment options, and eventual remembrance that brought her relief. Sarah, welcome. How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you, Chris. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for coming on. And I want to thank you for sharing your story with us today. Hopefully this can inspire others that may have been or may still be in similar situations that you've been in. Unfortunately, in our modern society, sexual exploitation of children is an epidemic. But the more people like yourself share their stories and victories with this, the more we can really bring awareness and try and fight against it in many different ways. Now, this is your first time on, so before we get into your story, tell us a little bit about what you're currently involved with.
Yeah, so I have been in a year-long program learning this modality for how to coach people through integration. So I'm just getting started as a coach, taking on clients.
Let's start from the beginning of your story. Tell us about it. Then we'll talk a little bit about your healing process. But first, let's understand a little bit about your journey. How did everything start for you?
Yeah, I was thinking yesterday I actually watched the episode that you did with Marty Rawson, which I found to be, a lot of what he said really resonated. And I thought it was cool how he described, the dark forces being in a state of separation and coming up against fear and kind of getting lost in the fear. So I've come to understand that in my own way, and, recognizing in myself very slowly, it seems like through my own hero's journey and my own personal suffering story, how I was fragmented. And then healing has been about integration. So the opposite of fragmentation is integration. And I just thought it was cool how he explained those dark forces. And I think in my story, the characters involved and my commodification were kind of unconscious and fragmented in a way that led them to be open to dark forces moving through them, which I think maybe we are all susceptible to. But yeah, so Marty Rawson also said something about how humanity is easily manipulated and controlled and dominated as a young species. And my personal story of suffering happened when I was a teenager. So I was also very susceptible personally to control and domination. And at the time, I had just met my birth mother for the first time. So naturally, I thought my trust was well placed and didn't even think to question that and wonder, if I didn't even realize I was giving my power away through trusting her. And I didn't really understand her state of mind and fragmentation, having grown up in foster care and been abused her whole life. And what she did was she actually placed her trust in the healthcare system to heal her mental distress. And as a result, she was giving her power away to a broken system and on heavy prescriptions, such as morphine, and actually addicted, deeply, deeply addicted to drugs. So I believe her behavior in the situation was just a lack of consciousness and those dark forces moving through her to feed on, to create this fear in me and feed on my negative emotions of fear. So basically, she just offered me drugs and introduced me to a brothel owner, and I was sold into sex work. So that's how I came to this fear, this separation in my own life. And it wasn't too terribly long, but I was in like this forced sexual slavery situation. I did end up going through a safe house and getting out of that situation, but I learned patterns that I wasn't conscious of at a very young age, and that kind of carried through to maybe a decade later, like these unconscious patterns of self-sabotage and my own addictions. And that's kind of, having moved through that, that's where I started to share my story and write about my experience and things that I found that helped me find my way back to remembering who I am and restoring my own power of choice.
That's a great introduction. Could you tell us a little bit about how you managed to work your way out of this?
Yeah, so it took a long time. I feel like I only started to really work my way out of this in 2019. And that's really when I hit this wall and decided I'm actually not going to try to force things. I'm going to totally surrender. And I just, I surrendered my will. I just stopped running in circles. And I gave over my expectation of having, goals or knowing thinking I knew what was best for myself, basically. And that started me living just a very simple life. And it was little pieces, like slowly in the beginning, but then, these little pieces of information that I started to pick up started to snowball. So when I made this choice to kind of surrender into this simple lifestyle and stay put, because I had, been kind of a runner and not wanted to stay still geographically for my whole adult life until this point. So I decided to just stop and like stay in the small town I was in, do the same thing every day, work a regular job. And in my quest for knowledge and researching different healing modalities and things, I came across just simple practices like gratitude, like just really appreciating and looking forward to really small things like going outside for a walk with my son at 4 o'clock every day and enjoying that and enjoying the fresh air. And being so grateful for the smallest things like the taste of apple juice. And, these seem like such little things, but the more I learned and practiced, then other situations were presented to me that continued to help me integrate before I even realized what was happening, because I was living one day at a time, So then something happened where I realized the water I was drinking was not clean. And I got a distiller and I started drinking distilled water that I made from home, and my body started to feel better and mental fog started to clear.
I want to go back to a second to The group that you were exploited by, was this an organized, large-scale operation?
I'm not sure I
Mm.
know how organized they were, or if I even want to know how organized they were. I mean, it could be they were. I'm not really sure because at this time, I was being fed GHB, methamphetamines, all kinds of things. I don't even know what on a daily basis for a period of months. So I really didn't have the awareness to track
Mm.
what was going on and how it was connected.
Now, did it take any outside interference or intervention to help you escape from this environment?
Yeah, I had to ask for help. I had to reach out and I reached out to a family member who I explained enough of the situation where they were able to find me a safe, like it was literally a safe house. And I got in, I got a bed and I got in there. So yeah, there was definitely a need for outside intervention. What's interesting about this story is, we can talk about like logistical details, but I see a thread throughout the entire process from then until now where all of the healing and the help and the safety I was given, I had to choose it first. And so now it's gotten to a point where I know as long as I make a choice, it's going to happen. A lot of this was led by my curiosity. So I started questioning things like, there's another side to my upbringing that was very religious. And I started questioning things like um, allowing myself to read certain texts. So growing up, I was taught, first your spiritual practice, you need to be really religious and go to church and only read the Bible. And you have to believe that the Bible is the only word of God. And if you take anything out of it or you add anything to it, you're going to hell. So it was like this very strict, like you cannot veer from this very strict container of religion. Well, I started to question that because I was trying to heal these pathologies that I was noticing in myself, like people I was choosing to date. Like, why was I making these weird choices when other people in my life would say, you actually have a lot to offer. You don't actually need to keep putting yourself in abusive situations, which is what a lot of survivors of these situations tend to do. And so I gave myself little permissions, like, I think I'm going to read this other text. And I remember the day I got a collection of Nag Hammadi scriptures, some Gnostic texts, and I started reading them, and light bulbs started going off. So this is all the way in 2020, like pretty recently, just 4 years ago. I can't believe how quickly this stuff has unfolded. It's very interesting. I remember reading things and like the Pistis of Sophia, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, the Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Thomas, talking about you must know yourself. And when you know yourself, you will know that you are a child of the living Father. And just the way, especially like the Valentinian Gnostic view of creation and the creation stories and salvation presented this information was like gnosis, knowledge, the pursuit of knowledge is a good thing. Knowing yourself is a good thing. It's not selfish. You're not evil. And this gave me the idea that, wait a second, what does it mean to be like a child of the living Father? Like, wasn't Jesus a child of the living Father? So I'm really playing with these concepts in the context of my religious programming. And then I found psilocybin. So I did a lot of research about how this could heal people from addictions and unconscious patterns and really help to repair neural networks in the brain. And I thought, okay, I'll try it because I found somebody that was guiding people and knew how to do it professionally. And I remember I had it in my head, like, okay, there's this concept of the higher self that I just learned. So I want to meet my higher self.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and did that. And I had an experience where I was kind of catapulted into divine reality. And I I had this understanding that whatever I'm confronted with in this moment, I can't back away from it, because backing away creates more of that pathology that I'm trying to fix. So I did have a moment of like extreme pain when the medicine started to hit, and this feeling of I've got to go into the pain. So I did that and I became the pain. And as I felt it and embraced it, it all dissipated. And then it was like the veil was lifted. And it was like my innate intelligence in my body was unlocked. And I could feel things that I hadn't been able to feel maybe ever. And I realized that, oh my gosh, these ridiculous things that I have problems with in my daily life and my relationships are meaningless, because really at the end of the day, these problems stem from a lack of consciousness, a lack of integration. And that started me on doing journeys. And then eventually I was able to find my voice. And not only it really wasn't until 2 years ago that I even had words for what happened, because this whole time, I was trying to protect my mother, and I felt really responsible for her. And it was just really scary to even say it out loud. But I did. I was able to write down what happened and how I could get some freedom afterwards, and how I could get back to starting to remember who I am. And then, all of this has just kind of blown my world wide open. And now all of a sudden I'm in this reality where a lot of people have their experiences of some of these same concepts that I've come to understand through this process.
Have you utilized psilocybin often in this journey? I have definitely used psilocybin. I really owe much of where I am and who I am right now to those healing journeys. Looking back, am always amazed at not only how quickly, but how effectively this medicine works to heal some of the most deep-rooted traumas and psychological issues that a person can have if you face your fear, if you don't try and run away or fight whatever it's trying to present you, like you were saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's incredible. Now it seems like common knowledge that mainstream healthcare prescribing these horribly addictive drugs is not at all helpful, even though it's legal. And then you get something like magic mushrooms coming online, becoming available for us to use to heal, where in some parts of the world, it's still illegal, but it's so effective. And realizing that everything seems to be turned upside down. And it's just, yeah, it's incredible, like how effective it is. And since using that, I've become more and more aware of other modalities that really, really help. Some of them I've tried, some of them I haven't. Two of the things that I have heard of that work really, really well for sexual trauma survivors are EMDR. It's like eye movement therapy and neurofeedback. But what I've been doing along with psilocybin, I haven't done psilocybin in quite some time, but because I've been in the somatic area of healing and re-imprinting the nervous system with things like love, safety, and belonging.
Tell us a little bit more
So
about
doing
that.
things like that. Yeah. So basically, what I find so fascinating about this work that I didn't even know 10 months ago is a lot of the healing doesn't require the person going through it to go into story. Like, you don't actually have to go, like with talk therapy, you get asked a lot of questions. Well, how was your childhood? How are your parents? Blah, blah, blah. This modality that I'm learning, which is based on Taoism, Tantra, and science, is more about let's drop into your body mind and connect with sensation. And connecting with the sensational experience of your body mind to uncover deeper truths and be present with what is there. So this modality I have found, it took me a long time to be able to even embrace it and go down this road because of religious programming. And what I'm noticing is the religious programming, it introduces a lot of shame and even demonizing of who we are, like who I am. For instance, like I had a tendency to feel very guilty and ashamed, and I cannot be a sexual being or have any pleasure because then I'm just like a horrible, dirty, demonic person. And I had experience, through people growing up in the church, a lot of exorcisms, like people trying to exorcise demons out of me. And through this process, going from this right hand type of path that's very religious to this left-handed type of path that is more focused on service to self for the purpose of enlightenment, really, it allowed me to play with this concept of, as things that are scary arise, rather than backing away and trying to exercise it or get rid of it or deny it, you move toward it. So if rage comes up, I go into the rage and I fully express it. Yell, scream within a safe container, like a coaching container, say what the rage has to say, embody the rage. And the more you do these embodiment practices and identify, these sensations in your body, the more you realize I'm not the rage, or I'm not the depression, or I'm not the shame. This is just an emotional expression that I have as a human being, but it's not who I am. I think for me, so from my understanding of classical Tantra, the point of the journey you go through with these Tantric practices is, if you are the type of person that's super, super disciplined and tends to lean far to the right spectrum of just right of balance, I guess, and you're really in your discipline, right? Then it's going to push you to move more into like a chaotic state, maybe like more unraveled, not so disciplined, the opposite of whatever you have been experienced. It'll push you to the other side. So if I came into this, really chaotic, right, it would probably push me to be more disciplined. But the goal isn't to be, I don't think, either far on the right or far on the left, but to be in the middle, to find the middle way, to align with your truth and have that balance.
For me, my psilocybin journeys presented me with some of the darkest aspects of my consciousness, some of the most traumatic experiences I've had. I think it's very important what you said earlier about facing the fear whenever it comes up during these experiences, because that is where the true healing is. It's behind whatever that darkness is presenting itself as.
Yeah. It's like that Rumi quote, the wound is the place where the light enters you.
So let's talk a little bit more about some of the other healing modalities that you used along your journey.
I think I've talked about the big ones. It's funny, I just watched a documentary, I think it was Code 12. I don't know if you've seen that one, where they talk, well, this woman is going through, I think her name's Michelle. She's talking about breaking the matrix and identifying the matrix. And Code 12 is supposed to be it's how she explains like this eternal math, which is based on code 12 rather than the base 10 math. But anyway, they go into all these modalities, and I realized I sort of use all of them that they discussed. Like one was basically imprinting in your nervous system through repetition, things that are good and positive that will help you. Like when I tap, the tapping thing, or in repeating affirmations, I can imprint things within my system like I am worthy, I am enough, which will allow me to respond to life from a place of believing that I'm worthy and enough. That's one. And then another is I have these dreams and downloads where just a couple of years ago, I realized I have to repair my DNA. And I have no medical background whatsoever, so I had no idea where this was coming from. But I'd already done the thing with the water, where I was drinking clean water. I've been eating pretty clean, not a lot of meats, and whole foods and grains and things like that. All of a sudden, I started getting these downloads of things that I needed that I had never heard of, like glutathione. And I put together like this, like 7 or 8 different supplements that I started taking and researching them a little bit. And it turns out, they all have the ability to kind of help repair your DNA. If you look at things like, telomerase is the enzyme that helps the cap of your chromosomes stay long, because as they shorten, you age. So what was the thing I took for that? I'm drawing a blank now. Oh, astragalus root. Started taking astragalus root for that. All these different things. And then I added sea moss to it as well. I took this concoction like 3 times a day for 6.5 weeks. And I had this experience of transfiguring into a light body. Like I remember standing in my office, and all of a sudden I had like this shift, and I became light or something. It was so interesting. And then come to find out, these things that I was taking was like feeding my body light somehow. I don't fully understand it. You may understand this better than I do, given how many people you interview, but yeah, it was like it was adding light, and just provided a lot of clarity and feeling a lot of deep peace and calm. So that's something I did. And, now I've really just kind of chosen this path of Tantra and making that my practice for healing mostly. I would still do psilocybin. One day I would love to try, what's the other one?
Ayahuasca?
What's the one? Yeah, ayahuasca, that one. One day I would like to try that. But I have found that Tantra is a good way to introduce daily practices into your life where you don't have to like exit reality for 8 hours or 4 hours or whatever it is.
Now, I think you mentioned something earlier that I think it's important for people. I grew up in a Catholic, somewhat dogmatic home in my childhood, and it caused a lot of hurdles for me to get over because of that dogmatic fear behind the fear of eternal damnation and some of the things that just didn't make sense to me growing up that I was taught through a biblical lens. You talk about how you really left that dogmatic view behind and started reading beyond the Bible, which I think is extremely important as well, which I did, but in the end, I really came back full circle to it because, yes, there's inversions. Yes, it's been infiltrated and changed for power and control, but I think there are also some very important fundamental messages within Christianity and the Bible as well, and I think we can integrate some of the understandings from within that as long as you can decipher through the BS within it. But I think all of these religious understandings have pieces of the puzzle. We just have to sift through some of the things that have been altered for power and control and look at really what resonates and benefits us in our own lives.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's interesting to go back and read things with a newer, more integrated, expanded awareness and reread it and uncover new meanings, because something I might have read 15 years ago would read totally different today. So yeah, I can definitely see that. Have you noticed any esoteric concepts in the Bible when you read it now?
100%. It all is filtered through a different lens after years of studying different theological understandings. They have overlaps, and some of the stories seem to repeat themselves throughout history, just to be interpreted through a different lens by a different culture during a different time period. And I think a lot of the stories are fundamentally the same. They're just told a different way depending on, like I said, what time period, what culture is interpreting and understanding it. And then they have the aspect of things being taken out and rewritten because those in power, whatever was in there may be a threat to them, so they have to change some things. I think it's very important to look at all of the understandings.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. One of the things that stood out to me, I had a pretty powerful experience with integrating my masculine and feminine sides. With breath work, of course, in Tantra, you do the microcosmic orbit, and then you breathe through the columns, the Ida, the Pingala, and the Sushumna in the center. That's one way, to balance your masculine, feminine energies. But I had a powerful experience before even approaching that type of breath work with psilocybin, where I made my intention going into the journey to realize Eros Gamos union within myself. And then what ended up happening was I do this thing where I look in the mirror. I don't know if you've ever done that on psilocybin. You look in the mirror, and it's like I can just sit there for like hours and see like universes in my eyeballs. It's kind of crazy, but I saw a masculine feature appear on my face, right? And it was like I met the divine masculine within me for the first time ever. And it was really powerful. And then, after finding that union within myself, I was able to attract that in my outer reality. But I found something, I was just reading it yesterday in the Gospel of Philip, that I remember that experience. And then I read this and I was like, oh my gosh, that's kind of what happened, right? So it says, when Eve was still with Adam, death did not exist. When she was separated from him, death came into being. If he enters again and attains his former self, death will be no more. So if I'm reading about Adam and Eve in the Bible, that puts kind of a new meaning there, because what if, this Adam and Eve is really a singular character, that this story is explaining a story from the lens of separation. But if you back up and look at it as an integrated male-female singular entity, then that story takes on a whole different meaning.
You also discussed how you were able to find your voice after your experiences. Tell us a little bit about how you overcame what you call imposter syndrome. Tell us a little bit, first of all, what is imposter syndrome, and tell us a little bit about how you overcame it.
I think imposter syndrome is really just believing like I'm not really worthy of speaking about this subject or writing. Like before I wrote a book, I'd never written a book, so I just wrote one, right? So really that tendency to think, well, I'm not a real author because I only wrote one book and it's really short and you can read it in a day. That would be imposter syndrome. And how did I overcome that? Well, some days I have overcome it, some days I haven't. But I think at the end of the day, just reminding myself I'm enough, I'm worthy, I don't have to do a lot of things in order to be who I am. I just have to remember that I'm really the point of being here and living on earth isn't really to do a bunch of cool stuff. It's really just to love people.
Now, you talk about your journey and how realizing that you were a slave in your personal life was one thing, but you wake up to a bigger picture and there is exploitation in all of our systems. It seems like we live in a society where the ruling class is so parasitic, they set up these systems to feed off of us in certain ways and to keep us in this slave-like mentality. You wake up to your own realizations, and then after that, you have to become aware that our entire system has levels of exploitation and a parasitic nature to a lot of the systems that we're subjected to. Right now, a lot of people are just now starting to wake up to this.
Yeah, totally. So I think right in the beginning, talking about how impactful it was to hear Marty Rawson's take on these dark forces. Um, so there's a moment when I was in a studio apartment. This was when I was a teenager, and I had been basically sold into sexual slavery, drugged and taken to the brothel. And it was months later, and it was the first time I had gained enough consciousness and coherence to be able to realize I was in trouble. And I was in this room, this studio, and there's a man and a woman on the bed, asleep or unconscious, like just passed out. And I looked around. I did have a phone and a purse. And I went to the door. It was boarded shut and nailed shut from the inside. So I had to figure out how to get the nails out of the board and leave that studio. So I was able to do that. And I just felt like the sunlight was blaring. It was the middle of the day outside. And I felt like, oh my God, I'm in hell. How did I even get here? And it was just this moment of like, what happened? I'm literally a slave right now. Like, I need help. Like, I need somebody to save me and rescue me. And that's when I called for help and was able to get out. And years of going through that process and healing, much later, I realized, okay, my personal suffering, which we all have our own hero's journey and trauma because we're all humans here living on earth. But for me, that was the moment I realized, wait, being a slave in this situation of being sold for sex and getting out of it and choosing something different and choosing to heal whatever broke inside of me during that process, that's a choice that is reflected in the collective right now. It's like I had that personal experience, but it's also the human collective experience on a whole. Different people have different stories personally, but it's almost like if I were to adopt this belief that before I was born, I chose to come here and I knew it was going to happen. Maybe I did. Maybe I chose that to happen so that I could be better equipped to stand as a guide to help point people back to their inner truth as humanity collectively wakes up to the fact that, wait, I've been trusting my doctor at the local clinic for 20 years who's been prescribing me morphine or oxy or whatever it is, right? And realizing we've been subtly giving our power away to these agencies or corporations or systems that are actually depleting us and taking money and not helping and making it worse and feeding our addictions. So waking up to that kind of collective slavery, it's interesting how my personal experience is really just a mirror of the overall.
After everything you've experienced and where you're at now with your understandings, you just mentioned that, in a sense, you believe we may choose to come here and have these experiences. You also mentioned some Gnostic scriptures and understandings. That is kind of where I'm at, is in between some of the Gnostic understandings and the possibilities that we do, in a sense, choose to come here and play a role, that there may be something in between those understandings. But I'd love to get your thoughts on why we're here and if we do choose to have certain experiences when we're here.
Yeah, I think zooming out ultimately, if you're going to go to like the big picture and you want to approach it from maybe like a Valentinian Gnostic perspective, you have the all, right? A lot of these stories of creation talk about the all being in this silence, right? But the all's thoughts created life, right? And basically, on the most basic level, all of life, all of creation is an opportunity for the all to experience itself and to love itself. Because we are all fragments or fractals of this divine quality, different aspects of it. And it's the same echoed in these tantric philosophies, except now you have a goddess who's somewhat bored and wants to play the ultimate game of life. And so she splits herself into millions of pieces so that she can discover herself and her greatness again. But she includes this aspect of forgetfulness. So it's like she can't even remember. She's going to have to get to know herself again without even remembering that she already knows who she is. So I think on its most basic level, if you were to put like pretty positive, optimistic viewpoint of why we're here, it would be ultimately to love each other, to experience each other, and to be full expressions of who we are.
So if a person finds themselves in similar situations to you and they are starting to realize that it's an exploitive situation, that they're in danger somehow, what would you recommend some of the first steps that that person take to getting themselves safe?
Well, you first have to have freedom of cognition. So if there are substances involved that you can't think clearly when you're drunk. You can't think clearly when you're high. So first find a way to clear your cognitive function enough to be able to have the capacity to choose whatever arises in the moment that's going to take you towards freedom. So if you're like truly stuck in a situation and you can have enough clarity of mind in a moment to embody an archetype that would walk out, that would choose freedom, then just do that. Because sometimes when we don't know who we are and we're in that situation and we're just scared, sometimes all you can do is just pick a character that isn't scared. I love to use the example of Wonder Woman, So if I'm totally scared and don't know what to do, let me just pretend I'm Wonder Woman for an hour and get out. And whatever that means, do you have to like walk to a gas station barefoot and borrow a phone to call for help? I have done that before.
Talk a little bit about the Mycelium Sanctum. This is a retreat for women that you're organized?
Yeah, I did that a couple of times, and anyone interested is more than welcome to reach out. I don't have any ceremonies planned right now, but yeah, it's just basically an opportunity. I have a guide attend for a small group of maybe like 4 or 5 women to come
Mm-hmm.
together and set intentions. Maybe you've never done psilocybin before and you're curious about it. And you can choose, whether you're going to do a deep dive or just a microdose. And just truly an exploration
Mm-hmm.
based on whatever intention you bring of this healing modality.
How do you feel about where we're at collectively, where we're headed as a society? I know that a lot of your life you may not have been able to tune into a bigger picture of what's going on, but it sounds like you have been exploring many aspects of our reality since you've become aware of things. And I'd love to get your insights into if you believe that we are having a spiritual awakening collectively, if we're headed in an overall positive direction. I've noticed a lot of positive changes in people in my immediate life and my circle, but it's hard to tell outside of that. What do you think?
Yeah, so right now in this moment, I'm very protective of my energy and my word and the story and all of the things like even just talking on this podcast, I was a little bit like, I want to be careful because I don't want to perpetuate anything that I don't want to exist
Mm,
anymore. So that's why I'm trying to be more focused on the positive, the solution, protect my energy, focus on the good things, because I understand now how important our attention is. And when we focus on what we want to create, on the desire, then that's what happens. And that's what I would really love to happen. So I believe that, you know, people are in different timelines,
mm,
and I want to be on the timeline that creates a new earth, and loves each other and is safe. And I think that is happening. And I think that there's probably a lot of people that we all know that won't be on that same
mm,
timeline. I think there's a path of chaos and a path of integration. And I'm just in this moment being really careful about my energy and choices and what I focus on because I really want to be on the timeline that um doesn't have
right on.
chaos.
You mentioned protecting your energy. I think this is something important for people to understand, especially if they're unaware that they need protection of their energy. Tell us a little bit about how you do this and maybe some modalities for it.
Yeah, so being conscious of your vibration, of course, like a tuning fork. If I bang a tuning fork and put it next to another tuning fork, then that other tuning fork is going to raise its vibration,
Mhm.
right? So I think just having a daily practice that feels good and true for you, that allows you to be in a state of calm and joy is very helpful, and just kind of choosing that as much as possible. So trying to think like what I would do, maybe like the heart is really powerful. So a breathwork practice incorporating the heart, and maybe, some affirmations or something. So like if I breathe into my heart and visualize it expanding and visualize, a color associated with it and just expand it throughout my body, then that could increase my energy, my vibration. And then how would I protect it? Just, I think something as simple as making the intention to protect it. Like I might say out loud protection,
Mm,
and then I'm protected. And I find, I guess there was a time in my life where if some sort of drama or chaos presented itself, I might be curious enough to kind of engage. Now that's not really even at all attractive to me to engage in any kind of drama. But I think, for people listening, they know if drama arises, they have the power to choose something different if maybe that feels like it no longer aligns with their current energy that they're trying to cultivate.
Excellent. Now, for the last few minutes we have, tell us a little bit about your book, Alchemizing Exploitation.
Yeah, so it's talking about the issue of human trafficking in the world and then in the United States especially, and how common it is, more than we realize. And it provides statistics and things, which some of them need to be updated because I have since gotten updated information. But basically just showing this problem exists. This is my experience with it. And this is the journey of discoveries I made along the way to find some freedom and remember who I am.
Excellent. Now, if the audience would like to pick up the book, find out more about you, what is the best way that they can do so?
They can email me at hello@iamsarahlauren.com or follow me on basically any social like X or Instagram. With my handle, it's the same everywhere, @IamSarahLauren.
Excellent. Is there any final closing messages that you'd like to leave the audience with before we let you go today?
Just, thanks for having me. And I'm sure all of your listeners probably all already know a good deal of this stuff and are on the right track anyway.
Excellent. Sarah, thank you so much. This was such important information. I definitely love to talk with you again in the future. There is much more we can discuss. And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We will talk again tomorrow. We'll see y'all then. Hello, friends. At some point in our journeys, we all need guidance and direction. One thing I've learned along the way is that there are many ways to connect with our soul mission. Jennifer Halcame offers over 30 years experience with intuitive tarot, life coaching, and energy and attachment clearing. She helps others with energetic blocks become aligned with their soul mission. She offers one-on-one or online Zoom sessions, and cases are assessed on an individual basis, and she works with everyone truly in need. You can email her now to set up a free consultation at jenniferhalcame@gmail.com or through Facebook Messenger. All those links are right in the description. Hello, friends. If you or a loved one has been struggling with a chronic or complex health problem and have been disappointed with the level of care available, get in touch with my friend Christian Yordanov. He is a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and author of 2 books. His first book was on autism and children's health, and he recently published the first volume on his series on longevity, How to Actually Live Longer, Volume 1. He's worked with clients with severe gut problems, toxicity, chronic fatigue, and he's helped people with autoimmune conditions, skin disorders, autism, multiple sclerosis, and folks with various metabolic conditions. He also advises people like myself who are in good health and are looking to keep it that way how to optimize things like cognitive function, exercise recovery, sleep, and much more. Christian works with clients remotely all over the world and uses advanced lab tests to help zero in on specific metabolic imbalances and challenges. The tests are shipped direct to your door. They're collected at home and picked up by a courier. Most doctors don't run these tests routinely because they either haven't been trained on using them, insurance won't cover them, or even both. Convenience for Christian's clients is a priority, so you will be in great hands. When you work with Christian, you'll also be able to chat directly with him in your dedicated client app, where you can access your personalized health protocols. He likes to work closely with his clients to ensure they have the support they need to achieve their health goals. It's like working with a functional practitioner and health coach at the same time. Some of his biggest areas of focus are helping clients mitigate stress and inflammation, improve detoxification and gut health, and optimize nutrition, supplementation, and environment, all based on your specific situation, lab work, lifestyle, and constraints. You can book a free intro call with Christian using the link in the description to see how he can help you restore your health. Make sure you mention FKN in the Where Did You Hear About Us field, and you'll receive bonus sessions, get access to a 13-hour detox workshop, and a copy of his latest book, How to Actually Live Longer Volume 1, as well as a copy of Volume 2 when it comes out later this year. Also, if you are already in good health, but you want to look under the hood and run some lab work to check for imbalances and maybe improve your supplement program, Christian can also help you with that. Don't wait for something to go wrong before you focus on your health. Click that link in the description right now. We live in an incredible age of information. More and more, we're discovering that we've been lied to and misled about much of our human history. Cory Hughes is providing profound revelations about World War I, World War II, the JFK assassination, Martin Luther King's assassination, and much, much more on his new Substack, Bloody History. Subscribe now for as little as $5 monthly. Just click that link right in the description to get started now and learn about our true history. You can now stream the Forbidden documentary Occult Louisiana free on Fossum Free Movies and TV, which is available on Fire Stick, Roku, iOS, and Android. Look for it soon on Tubi as well. Hello friends, have you tried what may be the most powerful antioxidant known to man, C60 PurplePower? My C60 story has led me to great health mentally and physically. It's helped me personally lose weight, have more energy, and fight aging in general. You can also get C60 for your pets. Our dogs love it. They may live forever. Go check out C60 for yourself. If you use the link right in the description, you're going to get 10% off your order plus free shipping. They have some incredible new products like gummies, oils, and much more. Hello friends, I want to tell you about our newest affiliate, BF Genetics. Would you like to grow your very own medicinal mushrooms in the comfort of your own home? BF Genetics is a small family-owned and operated farm in northern Colorado, providing the highest quality mushroom genetics and growing supplies. Everything from substrate, spores, and cultures to all the information you need to educate yourself about medicinal mushrooms. Right now, if you order with coupon code FKN10, you'll get 10% off your entire order. And right now, you can get buy two, get one free spore swaps. To get started today, just use the links right in the description.
Everything that exists is vibration. It goes on and it goes off, on and off, on and off. And so the on part is what we call birth, and the off part is what we call death. And you can't have one without the other, just as you can't have a front without a back, light without darkness, or solid without space. And so, you are it.